Dear friends, we are come together now to remember the disastrous explosion of 1880, to remember with pride and honor those who died with such courage, selflessness, and faith. For 135 years, coal has been hewn and drawn from Seaham colliery. It has been said, I will never send a son of mine to work down that place. But from my observation, that is not strictly true. And I have noticed how hard you are prepared to fight to try to keep it open. It is affectionately known as the knack, but it has also been described by newspaper reporters in time past as the fiery pit, as the hell pit.
On Wednesday, the 8th of September, 1880, at 2:20 a.m., the pit fired. There were 234 men down below at the time. By midnight, 67 of them had been brought out alive. After that, no more. Michael Smith, for example, trapped 2,000 feet below ground, wrote a last love letter to his wife with a rusty nail scratching on his tin pit bottle. It said, there was 40 of us all together at 7 a.m. Some was singing hymns, but my thoughts was on my little Michael, that him and I would meet in heaven at the same time. Dear wife, be sure and learn the children to pray for me. Dear wife, farewell. What an awful position we are in. Little Michael, mentioned by him in his letter, died the same day as his father. In another part of the pit, 5 men were found lying around their empty pit lamp, all dead. Beside them was a message written on a deal board. It said, the Lord has been with us, all ready for heaven, signed by Rick Cole.
In the name of His Holy Spirit, do we dedicate this beam of wood with its message of hope and faith in God. And we also dedicate this miner's banner, which has been given to be left in this church, symbol of fellowship, brotherhood, and common cause.
The explosion excited great national sympathy. Queen Victoria telegraphed from Balmoral. The Home Secretary arrived in Seaham. In 3 short months, more than £12,000 was collected for the widows and orphans, an enormous sum for the time. Sympathy in the district changed quite rapidly to bitterness when the Magdalen seam was bricked up before the bodies were recovered because fires were raging down below. This bitterness soon degenerated into strikes. The strikes led to blackleg labour being called in. The blacklegs were attacked by the men. 5 ringleaders were arrested and were sent to jail for some 6 months.
The coal owners would then use the candy men, who were the hired thugs, to evict people out onto the streets if they refused to return to work. There was men sacked and blacked throughout the coal field so that they could never ever get a job within the industry within Durham or Northumberland. The Londonderrys of this world did everything they possibly could to try and ensure that the union didn't gather momentum. the amount of pressure that was brought to bear on people living in virtual squalor resulted in the union disintegrating. It was only at the latter part of the century that the union started to gather strength. From there on, the Durham Miners Association began to grow in stature and fulfill the purpose and role of the union to protect and further the interests of mine workers in the pits in the county.
I was born at the Mill Inn on January the 21st, 1895, and there were just horse-drawn roads then, you know, and anyhow we moved from there and we went down to the Seaham. The railway used to come down from South Hetton and Merton with the coals for the docks. At first, when I can remember, there was just the North Dock. Now then, Londonderry's fleet, the boats only carried about 600 or 700 tons them days, and when they came in, they used to have to turn round in what they called the basin and come in backside first. So when they got their load on, they'd be able to go full steam ahead straight out.
The first heyday of the port was in the 1860s. Often Seaham Harbour's pilots had 100 sail lying off waiting to get into the harbour, and some 400,000 tons of coal were being exported. In the 1880s, steam was superseding sail. Steamships were getting bigger and bigger. Even Londonderry's own steamships couldn't get into their own harbour. They had to trade out of Sunderland. The port lost shipments. It was referred to sneeringly in the late 1890s as the duck pond. Something had to be done. The 6 mark was decided to sink a new pit along at Dordon and to double the size of the harbour. Sir Michael Hicks Beach and Lord Castlereagh laid the foundation stone in August 1899. Scenes of incredible activity followed. Pearson's navvies were working behind enormous coffer dams, deepening and extending the south dock. The 2 enormous piers stretched out like huge arms, as you can see, and a new lighthouse was built on the end of the north pier. It was a very fine day for Seaham after the Prime Minister of the time had opened the dock, that the SS Seaham Harbour sailed out with 2,500 tons of coal aboard.
The South Dock was a big job. They had all the streets to build for the coals, and then it started to build Dordon. I was 14 on the Friday and I started on the Monday. There was only one shaft open then, that was the terrace shaft. The Castlereagh was still on sinking and such as that. And when I went down the pit, I was sent to trap a door. It was about 500 yards from the shaft. And there was only about, I would say, about 10 men a shift working there then. Now the first start of the houses was Wynyard Street, and they started there on the big houses, and then it gradually grew and grew and right round.
In the early days, the miners decided that it was their responsibility to look after people within their community through contributions and levies from the miners' wages. They were able to establish the running of convalescent homes and clinics for the sick and the disabled. They were able to, through the welfare scheme, to develop their own sporting and leisure facilities, such as cricket and football pitches, bowling greens, sporting activities of that nature. And a great deal of interest was taken in the activities of the union by people within the community. So it was a natural progression.
Them days, all your business was formed, the miners' hall. It used to be very busy then. But you say the union in them days is different to what it is now. Everybody that worked at Dordon lived in the village of Dordon, in the vicinity. And they used to attend the meetings. The miners' hall used to get packed. Well, nowadays, everybody travels. Come as far as the west of Durham, Stanley, to Dordon.
As a young boy, there wasn't any choice at all for me, other than there was 3 collieries in the same vicinity. And indeed, I started Dordon Colliery straight from school at the age of 15-year-old. Since then, I've worked for 24 years in the industry until I was elected the president of the Durham Miners in 1985. And I'm proud to have been a miner. I'm proud to have been the son of a miner. Once you're accepted in a community, like the mining community, then I think you really begin to appreciate the finer things in life. The Londonderry family was a very powerful family in terms of the community of Seaham. They owned the dock company, they owned the other collieries in Seaham, and they owned the railway between Seaham and Sunderland, which engineered its own locomotives.
Dordon Colliery in County Durham sends much of its coal for shipment to nearby Seaham Harbour. The 2-mile line hugs the rugged northeastern coast. As well as getting the coal away quickly, the Harbour Board find useful jobs for old rolling stock not yet pensioned off. This one dates from the 1890s, and just look at what she's pulling.
In early years, of course, this street was the haunt of the many, many people who came off the ships in the harbour. In those days, the sound of French voices, Dutch voices, Flemish voices could be heard all over this terrace. Of course, the most important building on the North Terrace is the Londonderry offices there, built by Frances Anne in 1857. It was her administrative headquarters. The Marchioness might have been seen here in 1859 when she was inaugurating the placing of a huge Russian cannon. It had been presented to the town by Queen Victoria, a signal honour accorded to very few towns. The Terrace Green, of course, since that time, has been a centre for many different kinds of meetings. For many years it was used by the volunteers. Now, Seaham's Volunteer Brigade was set up by Frances Anne in 1860. They were very, very famous. There were more volunteers in this town per head of population than in any other town in the British Isles.
I was only 18 then, and I come to 19, and you were anxious to get money then. So anyhow, the war broke out. Well, we all thought we were going to go for 3 months holiday. Thought that if you saw the uniform, you were defeated. But what a mistake we got. I joined up in November 1914. I had my 21st birthday in the trenches at Flamels near Armentiers. So any other day coming, 1st of July, and we went over the top. and we were absolutely worn down. You couldn't walk for days. And I was badly hit, and I couldn't go no farther, and I lay there all the Saturday and the Sunday, and I can remember them coming and picking us up. I used to take me, and I knew no more after that. It was a sad day for Dordon. If there was one lad from Dordon killed that day, there was hundreds. And one of the beautifulest lads ever you knew in your life. The cream of the country went there. I thought I would never be able to go down the pit again. I don't know how the manager got to know, but he sent for me, and he says, Lord Londonderry said he had anyone come back had to be set on and give him the little bits of privilege that could be got. So anyhow, I says, why? I says, I never thought of that. And anyhow, I went over, and he fit us up with a job just walking around until I had that for about a year and a half, and I got strength and looking around, and I could do other jobs, and I did other jobs. And then at the finish, I went on setting. I was on setting 35 years.
It's a tradition that the Durham area has always kept up as the gala. It's remarkable how the men and the wives and families still trots into the gala for all their pits has been closed for years. Nostell Colliery band used to come from Yorkshire and stay on the Friday night and entertain the members of the club. And when we came back from the gala, even on the night time, the band used to stay and play, and I've seen people marching up and down the street at 12 o'clock at night along with the band. Fantastic. Year after year we used to look forward to it because it was a day out for the family and you know, to listen to the political speakers at that time.
Although nothing is prepared, no route is laid down on paper, it gives the impression of a perfectly organized procession, because it all goes according to tradition. The atmosphere wasn't quite the same this year, though. For the first time, the management was invited. For this was the first Durham rally since the pits were handed over to the people, and coal board representatives took part in the celebrations. 250,000 mining folk came to town and let themselves go for a day. This year, one of the popular attractions was Mr. Herbert Morrison, who spoke of the link of solidarity between miners and other workers.
In past years, every time the miners were on strike, the workers of London instinctively rallied in support of the miners when they were in dispute. They may not always have known a lot about the details, but they were instinctively on the miners' side, your side.
I've been coming here since I was a child with my father, and it's very difficult to describe the elation that you feel. It gives you a sense of belonging when you witness people coming along and supporting the miners in their fight to retain jobs and to retain their communities. Although the gala isn't as big in terms of what it used to be, I think of late, the last 2 or 3 years, there seems to have been an increase in the attendances. I think it's mainly been brought about by the fact that there is so much deprivation existing within the North East. There's a need for a rallying point for people to be able to come and listen to speakers' viewpoints upon working class struggle in general.
We came in 86, full of enthusiasm because the coal board had just told us that if the mines was in the Durham area was producing like Seaham, we had a good future. A fortnight after that, the coal board announced the closure of Seaham, so we're another pit short within the Durham area. I'll be transferred to another colliery, and then when the elections came along, I got the support of the Ententness Lodge, so now I'm the secretary of the Ententness Lodge. The men can say that there's something going to happen at the end, so they're supporting the lads we stood and fought for Seaham, you know. It's the only way I can say it anyway.
We're facing a crisis not because there's not enough coal reserves in Britain, not because British miners will not adopt the new technology. They've always done that. We're facing a crisis because of the government's policies. Their intentions are very clear. They want to introduce so-called flexible working at collieries like Westlow, Weymouth and Easington. More production at these pits by less men. What will that cheaper production mean to miners employed at Merton, Vane Tempest and Darden collieries? It'll mean very little or no future whatsoever for the men employed at those collieries.
What the Coal Board is saying is flexible walking. Flexible walking means they want machine available time on the face. So you're going to be 9 hours or 10 hours or whatever underground in adverse conditions. It's going to destroy men, it's going to cripple the bodies, man. If you think about, like Scargill said the day about Tommy Evan fighting for shorter hours. The reason he was fighting for shorter hours was for miners to live longer, because the death rate then, men weren't living to the age of 50 because of the long hours in the mines. That's what was killing them. The work wasn't killing them, it was the long hours that was killing them.
When we lifted the banner outside the welfare hall, I couldn't help it. I had a lump in my throat as big as nothing, and I'm very emotional. I can't help it. And I started to cry. My family gathered round. It's really heart-rending to see a banner going for the last time.
You know, you look upon your banners, your bottle colours, and we took that banner all over the country when we were fighting for that bit, and everybody knew the same banner. Yeah, so I did miss it this morning, like, but I was proud of the banner I did fetch you. You know, I did bring it.
See, the Knack pit is the oldest pit, and it was the mother of the pits. And for to see that close on, there's nothing safe. They were working seams 6, 7, 8 foot high, and the closer to go and work in a 3-foot seam, there's no pit safe when they do that. We fought hard and long to save that little pit, and they closed it, and now we're able to look forward to it. You know, he's at another pit. For how long?
I want this great scheme of nationalization to succeed triumphantly. The great experiment of socialism in a democracy depends on you. The whole future we are trying to build up in our country is for all our people and all our children, and it depends on you.
I didn't think it's something you can enjoy working down a pit like. I was born and bred here, and I'll die here maybe. I didn't want to move anywhere else. I like all my mates is here, my family's here. I didn't see why I wanted to go anywhere else. Got a warm beach, golf course, swimming pool, happiness.
There was all family names in mine, and then your father was a good worker, you were expected to be a good worker. I think you felt at that point in 1944 as though you were born to work. That was your whole function in life.
Since the end of the dispute, we've lost 9 collieries, 3 court works and 2 workshops, which has resulted in the loss of some 12,000 jobs in the region up until the end of 1987.
I mean, you go back to when I was young, the local people were at the pits, the local people were at the docks, and most people stop with the same farm all the lives, you know, and you cannot even say that nowadays.
Well, I started this show off 20 years ago. I started off originally for Seaham Urban District Council, although I'm not connected with the council. I do this as a hobby. I'm an ex-policeman. I retired 2 years ago, and it keeps you going, running about like this. Well, I wouldn't say it was local people totally, because it's a town of 23,000 people. And when you've got 70,000 people coming, obviously, you're drawing from quite a wide area. And I think that's good for the town.
Success last year. And with those few words, it now gives me great pleasure to declare the 1987 Eid Durham show open officially, and I hope you enjoy yourselves. Thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen.
I've never lived anywhere else other than Seaham. I worked in the mines for 41 years, and I've been a lodge auditor and committee man and chairman of the welfare and such like, and all them roles, which was part of the society, you know what I mean? This was part of our town. We live in like a sheltered sort of community, which a mining community is, but it's a great spirit.
It's a pitman's hobby in the northern country. It's renowned for its onions and its leeks. I mean, I remember one time in the horticultural tent itself, the chrysanthemum stands are sponsored by NSK Bearings from Peterlee. Now, NSK Bearings are a Japanese firm, and these Japanese chaps came along and they were walking around the chrysanthemum stands, and they said to me, "What are they?" And I said, "Well, the chrysanthemums." They're not. I said, "Well, it's your national flower." But we don't grow them like that in Japan. So it gives you some idea of how well the people grow the stuff up here.
We can say in the future that possibly the mines will close, and we'll look therefore, we've got a lot of green belt. We would like to think that we could improve it into a tourist attraction at the end of the day. So part of the aims of the show will incorporate tourist attraction.
We've got to attract industry, and the way is to clean up the town. At one time, Seaham had the unusual title of having the dirtiest beaches in Britain. They're now the dirtiest in Europe. The number of collieries is closing, getting fewer and fewer, yet the amount of pollution being tipped at Seaham is on the increase. The biggest polluters are certainly British coal. We're talking about the slurry, 300 tankers per week. The dock company gets money from the British coal for every tanker that enters its premises, so it's not in a mood to do anything about it either. We get a lot of antagonism from big industry in Seaham, because where there's muck, there's money. Not for the people of Seaham.
Seaham Environmental Association really came about as a product of the problems of the town. Seems extraordinary that we should be the only coal field in the whole of the country where this sort of ridiculous pollution is considered necessary in order to maintain jobs. We've had a number of exercises through the county council to look at alternatives, and each time they've been sandbagged by British coal's costings. It's always British coal's costings at the end of the day, and they're not really open to public scrutiny as to how they've been built up. And it's the easiest way for, you know, the most convenient way for them to do it is to just tip it over the cliff. With the insidious process that goes on, where the washery agents create this sludge, that's the dangerous stuff. That's the stuff that kills the marine life.
when we first started to go away fishing, you could go away anywhere and you could catch fish. You could put pots